That's not what I wanted, but okay. But yeah, it has its fair share of problems. But at the end of the day, it is solid. It's solid enough. Um, the major story that's tied to Sun Tzu and legalism in general that also kind of edifies what they stand for, what their philosophy is, um, comes to us actually from a biography on Sun Tzu's life. Now, ugh, the hell is wrong with me today? Uh, the story, the legend, the story, whatever, goes that Sun Tzu walked into a court trying to get some traction for his philosophy, his book, his teachings. Mostly just him trying to get a job, really. Um, so he goes into the court of this emperor, this king, and says, "Hey, I have a way of thinking here that you should totally use. It will give you it will give you a leg up on your competition." And the king's basically like, "Well, I don't believe you. I don't know who you are." So Sun Tzu says, "Look, I will get your concubines and your, guards and everything into perfect soldiers within like a day." And the king laughs. He's like, "Okay, whatever. This is impossible. We can't really do this. So whatever. Go ahead. Go ahead." So Sun Tzu takes the king's favorite or two favorite concubines and the rest of his harem and his guards and all of the others, and gets them out into the courtyard for a mock drill. And he gets them all together and says, "Get into formation." Now the concubines are all giggling and whatever. They don't give a shit what he wants. So he takes a second, makes it very clear or how he wants them to get into formation, what he means by getting into formation, explains himself very clearly, and says, "Okay, everyone, get into formation, and if formation isn't obtained soon, then we're gonna go ahead and there will be punishment." So the concubines and everybody laughs at him again. So he very calmly says, "Hey, the king's favorites that are supposed to be in charge of these outfits, get over here." And they come up and they're ready for whatever he thinks he's going to do to them, and he fucking beheads them on the spot. No questions asked, no warning, just cuts their heads right off. While everybody's still reeling in shock, he looks over and he says, "Okay, get in formation." And everybody gets in formation, because of course they do. But that's the general philosophy behind legalism. Draconian action to get desired results that are for the good of the people in general. Ah, son of a bitch. Obviously this is a bit heavy-handed, but whatever. Some people got into it. Some people think it works. That's fine. But it's not the only philosophy that takes hold in the East. So in India, Hinduism has basically just been a thing forever. Pretty much everyone who is Hindi or who is from India at the time worships the Hindu gods, yada yada yada, that sort of thing. Well, at one point, ooh, that's nice. At one point, according to legend, a ruler was told, "Hey, your son will be the greatest leader of men to have ever been born. But if he goes out of the palace ever, he will become a great philosopher, a great thinker, a religious exemplary." And the king, naturally, deciding that he doesn't want his son to be, he wants the son to follow in his footsteps and take over his throne when he dies, says, "Well, okay, we just won't let him out of the palace." What ends up happening, unfortunately, is that, well, I say unfortunately, but what ends up happening is, for whatever reason, Siddhartha Gautama ends up going on chariot rides outside of the palace. And on these chariot rides, he sees a number of things. One is a number of things that were predicted that he would see if he ever left, that would cause him to become a religious leader. One of which being poverty, one of which being like a downtrodden, or people who are downtrodden, someone who is, poor, and someone who's dead. Oh, and someone who's old. My bad. The poor and the downtrodden one were literally the same person, and I got them confused. But anyway, so he goes out and he sees a poor person. He sees the poor person. He sees, a downtrodden, or someone who's, looked down on. He sees all these things that were foretold of him to see, and he says, "Wow, this is real shit. Why isn't this a thing that's fixed?" And when he's, told that, hey, it's because of Hinduism, he says, okay, well, I don't agree with that, so I'm not going to do that. And he ends up going out into the wilderness and just eats a small meal and meditates. The time frame on this is in the air, I want to say. Largely because no one's 100% sure exactly how long he was out there. Some sources will cite that he was out there for a day. Some sources will cite that he was out there for 6 months. Like it varies depending on who's telling the story, basically, and how much you are super into Siddhartha. But anyway, by the end of the day, or by the end of his meditation time, he reaches nirvana, or enlightenment, and knows why suffering happens, knows how to solve suffering, da 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 da. Now, this is an odd situation, because Buddhism isn't technically a Chinese or Far Eastern concept. It's from India, which is kind of its own subcontinent. And as interesting as it is, it doesn't get a terribly large amount of traction in China, specifically. Now, this could be due to all kinds of things. A lot of people have speculated that because Buddhism has a very strong concept of letting go of your earthly possessions, including family members and things like that, it didn't really receive that much praise when it first showed up. They tried to combat this by introducing different ways of looking at Buddhism. Gods were introduced around this time frame. Added to the pantheon, I suppose. So we end up with things like the Fat Buddha that everybody knows and loves. The Fat Buddha is not actually Buddha. He is I think he was elevated to a Buddha, but not the Buddha, is what I'm saying. So he was elevated to a Buddha because he is actually a Chinese tabletop god, like a god of food that people would just have in their homes. So it was a rough transition, a bit of a rough transition time. But it did eventually get some traction, not like the most, but enough to consider it a Chinese philosophy at that point. But China's not the only place in the world, apparently. So we've got to talk about a couple other places. More specifically, because it's very popular to talk about, Japan. Now, Japan has its own religion, I guess. And I'm actually serious this time. It's a full-flung religion. It's not just a philosophy that people follow and then there's no gods or afterlife or anything like that. Full-flung, 100% religion. Now, Japan has, for the longest time, as of, I won't say the Warring States period, but as of its reintroduction to society,